It's Testimony Thursday with Ernisa B. And our special guest is,
Maria L. Scruggs.
I am so honored to have you on our show today. Mrs. Maria L. Scruggs, well as Miss now.
Mhm.
So you're gonna walk us through this thing. We don't know who you are. We're a blank canvas. So we would love to hear who Maria has become and who Maria was as a young girl, and kind of get a understanding of what it is that your testimony is. Everyone has a testimony or testimonies, because we know that God has done so many things for us. Sometimes on a daily basis is miracles, with how we get from one thing to another. So and then some of the monumental things that are in your life. I told someone that I know, but just because I know a little bit, I've seen your resume. I saw it online. One time you posted it on I think it was a social media post,
Mhm.
and I was like, ooh, I told somebody, I said, listen, I said, I said, let me tell you something. Put some respect on her name. Maria has a resume.
RESPECT.
Yes, ma'am. Maria has a resume that will make you go sit down and shut up somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Make you go hide under a table. So, um,
Thank
and
you. Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's for real. So you definitely have the foreground. You're overqualified, in my opinion. And sometimes that is a fearful thing for predecessors, and sometimes for those who are used to the status quo. Um, and so I appreciate all the fire that you bring and the challenge that you bring to the, first of all, the political arena, the law enforcement arena, and then people that are just uncomfortable with the fact that they could possibly be, some people just want to make sure they get along with you because they know that um, it's real. It's real, and that there are consequences. And not many Black women bring that set of special skills to the table.
Mm,
It's so often time that I find that sometimes it's expected that um, there's a certain place that Black women are try to push the Black women into a certain place and try to sexualize us and make it appear that we are a third of what we actually are,
mm.
and they give you your full respect. So I just appreciate, I
Awesome.
appreciate um ever, just knowing you, being in your presence, and I just can't wait to hear your testimony. So
Uh,
can you please, with all that said, open us up in prayer, because I do know that you have a strong relationship with our creator.
Our Creator in heaven, dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to sit with this sister, Ernisa, and talk about those things that are relevant in your sight. Dear Heavenly Father, as we move forward, please, please let the words that come from my mouth and to the ears of those who are also believers be the words that are acceptable in your sight. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask these things in that very holy name. Amen.
Amen. So who is Maria? Who are you as a young
Whew.
girl? Where were you born? I'll put it like that. We'll start with, where was Maria born?
Okay. Well, that's a real easy one, and I'd like to start off this broadcast by designating that who I am is Maria L. Scruggs. For those of you that have been around a while in the city of St. Pete, you know that I have a cousin with the exact same name, but separate those by our middle initials. I'm Maria L. and she's Maria A. So, but Maria L. Scruggs grew up right here in South St. Petersburg. I actually live in the beautiful home that I grew up in on Melrose, and Melrose was quite the scene for those of you who knew both back in the day of the street drug trade. And after my separation and ultimately my divorce, my daughter and I moved back into this house on Melrose, as well as raising my niece here. So I've been back here since 1987, and like I said, grew up right in this neighborhood, attending Jordan Park Elementary, Glen Oak, South Side. At Northeast, I was the first African American homecoming queen in a high school, in an integrated high school back in 1975. And that was huge, because back then the school spirit was very much alive, very different from what our young people experience today in a lot of instances. So, talk about getting some receipts early. Very involved politically at a very young age. I grew up in Bethel community, which at that time was Second Bethel, where my great uncle, the Reverend Enoch Davis, or who the Enoch Davis Center is named, established the spiritual and religious foundation for my family. Growing up here, he was the patriarch at that time. I grew up. My grandfather was deceased, so Reverend Davis was the patriarch of our family, and established some very sound principles from both a spiritual as well as a political and social responsibility. Bethel was a church uh, that we did church outside the walls of the church back then. We were the first to build a credit union in the African American community. As many know, we built Bethel Community Heights, addressing the housing issue at that time. So that's all I've ever known. I've always known about solving problems in my own community. And it was never about the fact that I was going to get a payoff or a paycheck. God gave me talents of a very strong interest in social justice and criminal justice at a very early age, and I lived that out, and I'm still living that out right to as we speak today. So that's the primary of who I am. I went on to Florida State, where I earned my Bachelor of Science degree in criminology. I have had over 40 years of public service experience, which includes about 30 in criminal justice and the other 15 or so in the nonprofit and world. And that has been a very interesting and exciting combination to my career, which has, while I still talk about the focus because I am by training a criminologist, but I talk about it in the context of how important it is with the other things I've done, like develop the breast cancer program for St. Anthony's, like develop the Charles Park Youth Initiative in Charles Park. And those kind of things that spoke to the social issues and health issues that were impacting African Americans right here in my own backyard. And so I've had a very, very rich career that has afforded me to um, have some experiences that are not very common. I was the first African American female in this area to really, I think, in the state of Florida, to have graduated 3 law enforcement academies. I'm basic recruit police officer. I was a beverage agent and a special agent with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, where I investigated racketeering and organized crime and narcotics. Very, 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 very unique at that time, back in the 80s. But I did my thing. And, it's tough sometimes being the very first, because, I'm one of those babies coming off of the civil rights movement. And I had a family and a foundation of history in the Upward Bound program, and the inspirations of the Dr. Martin Luther King and all of those civil rights real warriors that set the foundation for who I was, and I saw no limits. And while individuals have definitely tried to place limits on my ability, what they did not understand that my calling was one that God had given me, and certainly not one that man could take away. And then what he had done was brought me into a family and a family of community that supported the greatness that I brought. And so I hail that, and I feel sorry for anybody that cannot accept, that's just the person. That's the person that God created. I have my master's degree in public administration with a focus in public policy, as well as I am, which is a designation that you don't hear a whole lot about, because there's not a whole lot of people that have it in the state of Florida. I am a certified public manager, which means that I have been formally trained not only in my master's degree and in many of the roles that I've had professionally, but also as a certified public manager, been given the skills and competencies that help me lead in the public sector. And I tell people, we tend to think, well, we want our doctors and lawyers to be professionally trained, and our nurses to be trained, but we don't see the value in that those of us that lead in the public arena to be just as trained. And that is, I believe, one of the main reasons that we experience a lot of the challenges that we do on the local, state, and um, national level, is because we just elect people because we like them. They have a lot of money, and then they lack the skills and competencies that it take to manage public resources, and people that work in the public sector. One of your greatest assets in the public arena are your people. And it amazes me how leaders of these public organizations take their people, they take them for granted and don't invest in their people. And I think that is one of the major issues that we have to come to grips with. I tell you, as I ponder my second career, because I am now officially retired from the state of Florida for retirement system. However, what that means is I've entered the drop program. I no longer am able to accumulate benefits through the Florida retirement system because I'm officially retired, but I just still go to work every day. And it's just a matter of waking up one day and saying, I think it's time that I can close that chapter in my life in Orange County Corrections, which has been a very interesting ride for the last going on 19 years that I have traveled I-4 Monday through Friday. And the lessons, oh my God, it's just too much, too many experiences and lessons to even begin to talk about, but certainly something that I think will certainly benefit me in chapter two.
Oh, that is excellent. So, what does the L stand for in your name?
The L stands for Lynn. For those of you that know me, I'm a twin, and our initials are MLS. Maria Lynn Scruggs and Maurice Leon Scruggs. My mother's baby brother, Uncle Eddie, named us, and so yeah, we carry those initials, and our offspring carry those initials, and repeat the names in this family as well.
Who's the eldest of you and your twin?
My twin is actually 6 minutes older than I am. Yep. I laid back and let him come on out, and then the queen made her entrance 6 minutes later. So, and the more interesting, he's the more laid back of the two. Um, People, it wasn't very common in the 50s to have twins in the African American community. And so we were always known as the twins, and he was definitely the laid back one. And when I would be going around the neighborhood talking to people in the neighborhood, and I would say, and they would give me money and always blessing me with something. And I say, Maurice, you got to learn to talk to people. He say, no, I don't need to talk to people. I got you. So I have been his mouthpiece for many years, though. But he did fool me. He had at my mother's funeral. He got up, and the eulogy, unplanned eulogy that he gave my mother just had us blown out the water. I'm like, boy, I didn't know you had that in you. But why not? He'd been raised in the same house, had the same experiences. He just was the more laid back one. He went to Florida Memorial um, during a time where my great uncle was actually on the board of trustees at Florida Memorial. So he went down south, and my dad's sister was down south, and he has pretty much lived there most of his life. And so people don't see him that much in St. Pete, but they remember the twins from Northeast. He was actually my escort for homecoming. So yeah, yeah. But and then we have an older brother, Lester, that most people know him in the street as Scooter. And yeah, that was the trio that spawned right here on Melrose Avenue.
Oh, that is excellent. So your lineage, your mother, what is her name, her maiden name? And then your father, what is his name?
Okay, my mother is Eula Ellison Scruggs. Many people see me post the Ellison side of the family. And then my dad was Robert Leon Scruggs. And they, um, when you think about your upbringing, and I think that comes across a lot lately. Um, while they were not perfect parents, um, I'm just so thankful that they were the parents that they were. Um, my dad, unlike a lot of men, and many know him, that maybe many may be around that still remember my dad and his brother Sidney, were two of the most powerful gospel singers back in the day. My dad was gifted and anointed in music. Never had a music lesson in his life, but could play that piano and had a voice. And then on top of that, he was good looking. So he the women certainly gave my mom a run for her money. But the most gentle person, never heard him. His curse word was dag nabbit. So we always would joke about, well, we know where Maria got her cursing from. It was not the Scruggs side of the family, because we never saw that man raise his voice or get angry. I was in an accident. I was in Upward Bound and stayed there for the summer, and had an accident in his car. Fell asleep on the road, just exhausted because I was just always running, 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 and ran over a bank sign, ran over a sprinkler system. And so when my dad got the cop called my dad, and when he got there, he um the cop was like, "Whoo, you got one of the coolest dads in the world," say, because most dads would have been livid. My dad said I had one concern, and that was my baby was all right. Though he had, absolutely just his demeanor. Certainly, my mom was the disciplinarian, the no nonsense Ellison girl who didn't take no wooden nickels, but thank her every day for her decision to raise us in Florida and her family in Florida. Half of her siblings raised their children in New York. And while I love New York and I love my New York family, I'm thankful to have been raised in Florida. A very, very different experience, and one that I think certainly has helped shape who I am is been my environment. So definitely hail from two great parents, and a long list of siblings, aunts and uncles, and my grandmother Elizabeth Ellison. Many people knew of her role here at Bethel. And then I talked about my great uncle, Reverend Enoch Davis, and then of course my mom's um, couple of sisters that were here was uh, Victoria Gaskin, everybody knew as Cookie, and who was the owner and manager of Victoria Martin Nursing Home. For those of you may have, remember that. And then my Uncle Don, her husband, Don Gaskin. So we just have a long line of history and service in this community, and why I'm so passionate about it is just it was just something I was raised to do that just comes very natural for me here.
Now, where's your mother born? She was born in Georgia, right?
Yes, yes, yes. She was
What
born
city?
in Waynesboro. hmm
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. And
She
you're
she
Mhm.
was both her and my dad. They don't know didn't know a lot about it, but they knew that that's where they were born because they both came here at a very young age.
Yes, as a lot of people in that generation did. My grandmother and other people came from that area.
Mhm.
So that is excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
And the I guess I want to kind of fast forward to a space and time where I saw such a monumental. I mean, I admired your work in the community from afar, and so I was able to see you run for mayor. And I don't know what 19. What was that? What year was that?
Whoo, that was the year Rick Baker was elected. What year was that? 2015, 14, something along there.
You you ran in 2015.
I ran my run for mayor was when Rick Baker was elected his first term.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Now that's
yes.
excellent. And
Mhm.
I was like, she's my shero. I'm like, that is I'm like, that's amazing, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. And it was just so second. It was so natural and such a natural progression, a natural thing to do. But I think that one of the more um, prevalent lessons in that race was I knew that I would not win that race against Rick Baker for many, many reasons. But it was one of the things that has concerned me about South St. Petersburg, and particularly the African community, are the limits that we place on ourselves and the limit that we place on other African Americans. I remember when I met or when I saw President Obama and Michelle Obama on the National Democratic stage, and I said that's going to be the next president of the United States. And people remind me of that today, that I told them, and they were like, absolutely no way. America, we just can't see it. We're no way. I said, he's going to be the next president of the United States. And I remember people of African descent more than anything just couldn't see the vision. And of course, once he became president, then everybody, well, yeah, I knew it right on, right on. But it's just race and not even understanding that we have limitations, and those limitations that we often find are limitations that others place on us. And I never forget the corner store right here on 9th and 13th. I was there, and a car pulled up with some little babies. And they would say, Mama, Mama, that's the lady running for president. And I tell you, that took the cake. I didn't care about anything else. My work had been done because you had little ones who were paying attention to the electoral process in their city. And those are the experiences that our babies have to see. They can't, everything can't be out of their reach. They've got to be able to touch their elected officials. And when we talk about representation, it is not for the purpose of having a black face in a position, it is for you to be a voice to those that look like you in part, not to say you just legislate to black people, but for your people of your of African descent, or if you're Latino, or if you're Asian, or if you're from the LGBTQ community. It's for people to be able to see, oh, I can do that. There are no limitations on me. And the only way that they can see that is when they see us take on these powerful positions and hold your own. I held my own against Rick Baker. And to this day, I think we're very, very respectful of each other. Certainly don't agree on some things in policy, but certainly respect the fact that we had a candidate, we had a very, very civil campaign, and I think learned a lot from each other during that process. So, yeah.
Well, we know that Rick Baker is a Republican, and at that time, did you run? I know it's a nonpartisan race,
Hmm.
but were you a member of the Democratic Party at that time?
Always, yes, always have
Okay.
been. Hmm.
Okay. And so how do you feel the push was from your party to actually bring home the win?
I think I don't think there was a push at all. I think that sadly, that has been one of the challenges of our local Democratic Party. And one of that I've often talked about is they never work to support their base. Um, I think have been very comfortable with a couple of names, and that's who the party has been behind. But as a result, we've suffered as a result of that. We've not expanded the pool. I see. We now have younger people that are entering the election process here in St. Pete, and quite frankly, I'm very concerned that they may not have had the tutelage that was needed, or the mentorship that was needed. Holding office is a very, very, very important responsibility, and I'm not sure that the party has been as progressive and as they could have, ensuring that once their base decided to run for office, that they were giving them the tools that they needed to be successful. Not only to run though, because running is kind of the easy part, and getting elected is the next easy part. Then the hard part is once you get in that seat. That's a whole different experience, that I don't think we've mirrored well or mentored well in this city, but always leaves the opportunity for us to do better.
Oh, yes, definitely. It's very interesting that you should say that because I think it serves a great interest when a person is severely underqualified but overly zealous. And it serves the interest of those who really want a seat that they can control. And because they know the person doesn't have the adequate ability to be able to make decisions without needing some guidance, because
Hmm.
they don't have the foreknowledge nor the experience to be able to to move around the board. Like
Hmm.
they're going to ask, they're going to have to be in a position of deficiency, not necessarily deficiency, but dependency. And a person that is in a codependent situation where they really need to be in a leadership role or a leadership mentality will always serve the interest of whoever wants them there
Hmm.
rather than their actual constituents.
Exactly. Exactly. It goes to saying, my one of my favorite sayings is that my politics has always been about the people, and the only way that I'll ever get elected is when the people put me there. Because once you start placating to the developers and big business and the folks that's writing big checks, That's the agenda that you're going to get. That's just how it works. And one of the things that I think that the people have lost sight on, and I'm talking about just everyday people have lost sight of this, that they actually could have the power. The power is not in the big business and the paychecks. That, well, it is because we've allowed that to happen. But those individuals, they might write big checks, but they carry one vote. And and when the people in mass decide, and our history continues to demonstrate this, is what happened with President Obama. It was the people. Yes, he had a lot of big name support eventually, but it was because the people organized in various coalitions to support his candidacy, and that's ultimately the success that he had. And it wasn't the $1 billion contributions; it was the $5, $10 contributions that added up, and made him a very viable and ultimately the successful candidate.
Well, I look forward to the day that in St. Petersburg we actually applaud and honor those who are overly qualified, especially females, Black females, who are overqualified and available and accessible to lead certain movements that the community definitely has to have. We have to start honoring our mothers more, because this world and this system will teach you to dishonor those who you actually come from. So it's
Yes.
so we have to start loving ourselves a little more, so that we can put those people that we can't necessarily always grasp. It's better to have someone that you can't manipulate and control to be in those seats, because those people will be able to really function and work in their gifting, in their calling, and in the ministry that God has given them. And I say ministry because if you go to any other country, they call all of these offices ministries. So the
Ministers.
ministry, yes, yeah. So the
Exactly.
ministry of tourism, the ministry of the sciences, the ministry of the arts, the ministry of the consulate's office. So we have to start seeing this as a ministry. We have to start seeing this, because when we see it as ministry, then we understand what it means to be a minister. And that's what you're doing. You have to be proficient. You have to know your word. You have to know why you came. You have to know what your agenda is. You have to be able to discern and anticipate other people's agenda, and be able to um, have a response before it actually hits the table. And people don't like that. What they like is comfortable politics, because if you put people that are extremely predictable in certain roles, then nothing changes. Like, absolutely nothing is going to change, especially when they're underqualified.
That's right.
So, and when I say that, I think when I say underqualified, I mean not prepared. When they're
Not
totally
bad.
not prepared for what it is that they're embarking on,
Mhm.
and not only are not prepared, but don't have the um, network that they need to be able to survive what it is that they're getting into.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I am all for everything that you bring to the table in terms of education, in terms of network, in terms of net worth, because you also know how to bring home the dollars. I mean, what they don't understand is with a campaign, and if you could explain to our um, audience, just with you have to be able to bring home the dollars in these campaigns,
Yeah.
because that's what you have to be able to raise funds. And if
Hmm.
you can't raise funds, then you can't effectively work that business, and it's
Method.
a business piece of it.
Exactly. Well, that is true, and one I definitely look forward to the day that campaign reform results in elections being more about people that are prepared than about people who can raise the most money. because what has happened is sadly that we have individuals that are sitting in positions totally unprepared, but because they have been able to garner the support of some folks with big checks, which ultimately has resulted in their bottom line of development contracts and stuff that ultimately um, um, does not necessarily benefit the people. That we get to a place where there's a balance, that you recognize that yes, there's a cost to being able to run, but that it gets a little bit more reasonable. I was looking at the amount of money that has been raised in the governor's race in Georgia, and I think the two top Democrats have raised $1 million, and the lone Republican has raised $2.2 million early on. And what that tends to do is probably dissuade someone who's a very great candidate, but realize they can't compete with that kind of fundraising. So it really is a double-edged sword that you have to recognize is a reality in the political process.
Oh, definitely. And you did your big one as president of NAACP. How did you come into that role, and what inspired you to actually go for that role?
hmm Well, I've been a member of the NAACP all of my life, from the time that I was 16 years old, in the youth branch under the late Watson Haynes, the late Morris Milton, who was the president at the time, and many others who shepherded me in that whole civil rights and social justice arena. And so it was very natural, when um, Bishop Sykes was removed from the position, which was shocking to me in the way that that happened. I was asked to consider running, and I did. And I'm very happy with some of the successes that we had. Sadly, there's always a negative twist, because one of the things we talked about, some of our detractors that see you really pushing an agenda that is going to benefit the people, that can be very threatening and intimidating. So we did have, about when it came time for reelection, where there were literally elected officials that were trying to usurp the election process so that I would get elected. And I was shocked. They had never attended an NAACP meeting, but all of a sudden there was this energy among a few to unseat me. And while they were unsuccessful, it was a very sad commentary, because what it did was again perpetuate this divisiveness and division that exists within our community, and this notion that if you're not a part of this social club or whatever it is, that you're not valued. And of course, that's not where my power source come from, so it means very little to me. I continue to operate in the vein of understanding that it is God and only God that has given me the gifts that He's given me, and that's who I'm beholding to. So when I don't yield to what man thinks I should yield to, they can get a little distraction, get a little ugly. But I'm a big girl, so I handle that business as well, and we keep it moving. So, but yeah, that was a very exciting time for me. Very honored. A position that I tried to bring and maintain a lot of integrity with the position, because I believe nationally that the NAACP's reputation has been compromised, and that there are pockets of folks who don't believe in their mission anymore. And I wanted to keep that alive, and definitely address the issues that were the social and racial and issues that were impacting African people, because the organization is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And many individuals of all different hues fought for that organization and fought for the mission. And I felt just little old me here in St. Petersburg had a responsibility to keep that mission alive. And I think that we did a really good job. The only reason that I stepped down was because I could not. I was running for a county commissioner, and at that time, I had to step down in my role as president of the NAACP.
Yes, you did an excellent job as NAACP president. There, things were very orderly, organized. You could always, um, know exactly what was going to happen. You were giving clear understanding to everyone that was following certain missions and taking on certain movements that were coming out of your organization. So
Mhm.
just appreciate your leadership in NAACP.
Thank
I
you.
definitely appreciate it. I had been a member of the NAACP years prior when 16th Street was our home of NAACP. And I guess by divine providence, the home home of NAACP was at your uncle, what, Enoch Davis. Was it Enoch Davis your uncle, or what was
He's
his
my great uncle.
great uncle? Yeah.
He was
And
my
so,
great
yeah, it was at the Enoch Davis Center. I'm like, this is like divine providence,
uncle.
you know.
It was. It was. And there would actually be times I went there last month. I was speaking at a youth gun violence conference, and I noticed that there had been some shifting of his pictures and his mural, and I'm like, wait, hold on, what's going on? Because there is a lot of energy that I gain from just having my moments where I would go and sit and watch that mural, and just think about what he would be telling me and how he would be guiding me in certain situations. And so it was very powerful and very fitting to host those general membership meetings in what I considered a very holy place that was named after my great uncle. And then, like I say, to have his picture there, kind of like overseeing and keeping me focused and humbled on what God was calling me to do, and not allowing me to acquiesce into anybody's agenda that was contrary to the mission of the NAACP. And I felt he helped me. He helped me, because there were days that there were folks that tried it and tried me, but he definitely helped keep me centered and focused on what the work was about.
And I've actually been able to watch you in your role as you were the leadership of Happy Workers um, at a time on the board. You were president of the board of Happy Workers.
Correct.
And the shifting with Evadne, when she was there, she was a South African woman,
Hmm.
um, kind of like a Elon Musk of her time, Caucasian lady. And just the shift that you were able to make there so that those children could get the much needed um, benefits and opportunities that should be afforded any child their age group within their community, and at such a historic place. I watched the renovations that took place at the chapel, which was so historic. And if you can just share with us a little bit about your role at Happy Workers and how you came into that role, and what you were able to actually quantify in that time frame.
Absolutely, absolutely. Definitely one of the pinnacles of success, I think, in my advocacy role here in St. Petersburg, to actually lead the first preschool in the African American community. And what I had noticed from afar is that it was difficult to get our leaders to serve on the board of Happy Workers. Um, I think service was about too much about, I want to serve where I get to do the least, but I get the most because it's about me, as opposed to serving and trying to preserve institutions within our community. And I was invited on the board by the former uh, the woman that preceded me. And then when she left, I became the chairman of the board. And one of the things that happened during that time was the assistant manager, who was at that time, died rather suddenly, and who was the glue and had been the glue for the staff. And we ended up in a situation where we had um, some staff supervision issues with licensing, and the board's policy was that at any time that a staff member was involved in improper supervision, it was automatic termination. And sadly, we got maybe four of those within a short period of time, which actually impacted enrollment. We were also dealing with issues from the Early Learning Coalition, and um, thank be thank be to God for Art O'Hara. Art O'Hara and the late Art O'Hara and I had a very, very respectful working relationship. And one of the things that he said to me when he recognized that happy workers may be in trouble was that what could he do to help? And this was after I had gone to every elected official in the African American community to recognize that I wasn't going to get any help. It was going to be about watching the school self destruct as a way of ensuring that I fail, but that was not an option. And as a result, we were able to negotiate a very, very lucrative package for our club to take over the ownership. But what we got out of that was that we would have a new campus. The name, which is entire, not just a chapel, but the entire campus has been renovated. We were those that deserved to keep their jobs, that they kept their jobs. We also had a board member who we had an outstanding loan, personal loan, to Mr. Greg Duckett, who had been on the board for over 40 years, and we were able to pay Mr. Duckett his loan back. And when we walked away very happy. And as a matter of fact, Happy Workers Art Club, which is now what it's called, is one of the literacy partners for the Phyllis Wheatley Rise to Read campaign, because it's just so important that we learn to protect our institutions. And while they may look a little bit different than they did when they started, the hope is that we'll never allow that institution to go away, because that served as the first place that many of our children were not able to go to preschool or go other private schools, and that served as a beacon of hope for a lot of our babies in South St. Petersburg.
Oh, yes, excellent. And since you say that, please let our audience know just how significant Happy Workers is. And can you name some of the names of some of the graduates that people may know internationally or nationally on the world stage that came right out of Happy Workers as
Happy
children?
Workers, yeah, we definitely know our own Angela Bassett came out of Happy Workers. We know that our own Reverend Wayne Thompson was featured in the pre Tom Thumb wedding, which was a fundraiser for Happy Workers back in the day. We know that um, 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 Coretta Scott King actually hosted a concert at the original building, where the charge was a penny to raise money for Happy Workers. So there was just a ton of history. And I did the, um, the sad the death of Art O'Hare was rather sudden and totally unexpected. So, what we did not get a chance to do was to go through the archives of happy workers and some of the things so that we can ensure that a lot of that history was preserved. I am hoping now that our club has gone through another leadership change where the person that preceded Art has retired, and now there's a new president. I've reached out to her in hopes that we can get that information, and that in the event that we or when we get our African American museum, we certainly want to make sure that we've captured the history of happy workers in that museum.
Oh yes, definitely. I think that that is going to be a major step. That's a step that is a step in the right direction. And this current administration, while they're funding things for the youth, I think that that is definitely one of the things that needs to be funded as well. I know Manhattan Casino is receiving some funding. I think that's state money that
Yes.
they'll be receiving
Mhm.
to the tune of
Uh,
what, one
Federal.
point eight million or something like that.
Yes, ma'am. Federal.
Oh, it's federal money. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
um, that so that allocation is a good allocation. I thought the number was somewhere like 4.8. So is there money coming from somewhere else, or is just
There,
that one point?
there may be funds from somewhere else, but I'm on the mayor's newsletter or progress, weekly
Report?
progress, and that's where I saw the information that was where the Manhattan Casino had received $1 million, and it was something else. What else? Oh, it escapes me right now, but yeah. So but there certainly may be other funds that are in the hopper, and we'll see.
Yes, I believe the Happy Workers definitely needs that. And it was also an honor for you to invite me to be on that board at the time that you were serving. So I did get a really good understanding of, more of an understanding of Happy Workers when I was, like I say, there serving in the time and tenure that you were there. I do want to ask you about your family structure. So I know you have a daughter, and now I get the word Lynn on her first name because your middle name is Lynn. So
Exactly.
can you tell us about your family structure? I know that you've been married before. People probably want to know who is, who's she, is she single? Is she married? So somebody may be watching here trying to see, hey, this lady has a nice resume. She's retired. She might, somebody might be looking for either hey, people are looking for all sorts of things these days. So
Yeah,
um, so just give us a clue of where you are right now, and kind of where you've been relationally regarding your family structure and the family that you have made for yourself.
well, definitely. I am currently divorced. My ex-husband is Bernard Weston, a great, great man, and the father of my daughter, Sheelan. Sheelan's name, actually, it just worked out perfectly that it has the Lynn in it. She's Sheelan Maria. Where my nieces and my daughter have my name as their middle names. But Sheelan actually was named after one of my mother's students at 74th Street Elementary. And I just love that name. And that's where it came from. And then it fit because it carried the Lynn as a part of it. But through that marriage to Bernard, I'm the stepmother of Bernetta Weston, and then the grandmother, the nana, to her two boys, Danny Davis the third and Quincy. Um, they have been the apple of my eye. You probably see me talk about them from time to time on social media. They're young men now, but remember the day that they came into this country from the Middle East, and watching them grow up and be very proud of them as young men, and watching their growth. And so while I did not have a huge family myself, I certainly have a very huge extended family. And while Bernard and I are no longer married, still have very much strong connections to his family, because sometimes, marriages just don't work, but you don't divorce all of those relationships that you've built within that. And so I like to think and know that they still love me as much as I love them, and that while our marriage did not work, it there did nothing to interrupt the fact that I have brother-in-laws and sister-in-laws and former in-laws that I'm still very close to.
Oh, that's excellent. Phyllis Wheatley Rise to Read.
Yes.
I
Well,
know that you saw that there was a literacy issue while you were at NAACP, and it seems like you just moved your movement and gave it a name.
yeah, yeah. Um, uh, one of the things that if people are very serious and really getting to know me, they're going to always find the same thing. Um, I'm going to get some results. I just don't have the interest or the time in being involved in something just to see my name. That means absolutely nothing to me. But to dig in and address an issue that is germane to whatever the situation is that I'm called to. And what came to light when I was the president of the NAACP was that African American children in Pinellas County, only 25% were reading at grade level. As a result, we declared that a civil rights issue, and and the way we got to Phyllis Wheatley was I asked well, let me back up a little bit. We had a very active education committee, and one of the things that we had done was done a review of the Pinellas County school system's Bridging the Gap plan. And we made some recommendations after a thorough review of that plan, and we saw that it just fell on deaf ears. And I said to the education committee, I said, we have one or two choices. We either continue to fight this battle with people who really are not interested in what we have to say, or do we decide and ask the question, what do we need to do as a community to bridge the academic gap between Black and white students? And Dr. Williams, Sandra Williams, agreed to host 2 days of conversations with the different stakeholders. And the conversations asked the question, what is it that the African American community need to do to help close the achievement gap between Black and white children? And the answer was address our children's mental health and also ensure our children could read. And so once we started that journey of figuring out what does that look like, about what it is our children can't read, and it just sounded so bizarre in the 21st century. And what evolved out of that was the Phyllis Wheatley Rise to Read campaign. And the focus was to, first of all, raise the awareness of the literacy issue, but also to build a collaboration of partners to help address the issue. And so that has certainly been a labor of love. Again, one of the things that you learn when trying to do something innovative, it's sometimes very difficult to get people on board because we want the quick fix and we want to throw some money at a problem, but we don't want to delve into the solutions and the work that goes into the issue, so that it's an issue that's sustained. I mean, it's a solution that can be sustained, and then you're going on to the next solution. You're going on to the next solution. But we keep going in this vicious cycle of funding problems that never seem to get resolved. And so that's my work, and that's my reputation. Is that it's not about just getting funding or just being the head of something. but really being a part of things that where we can actually begin to make some changes and solve some solutions in our community.
Oh yes, definitely. Some of the reading and the literacy issue is a very large one. In the Pinellas County area, definitely. And we have some failure factories and articles that have come out about failure factories as a result of that. I have sat on a few boards, and including Parent Support for Education. I've definitely come and I was definitely been a part of your Phyllis Wheatley Rise to Read. Anything that's surrounding our children getting some type of help. I know that we and assistance, and not just help and assistance, but also that will highlight some of the areas within the family structure that can also be remedied as well, that could be contributing to some of the educational and academic challenges that our children are facing. I appreciate also the strides that you always make toward getting some solution. I know that with that CoQueb, I think it was a 10-year time frame that we were looking at, or what year are we in within that actual lawsuit
The,
time frame?
yeah, I'm not sure of the actual
I
year.
think we're maybe in year
We're
8. So we
close.
have like,
We're
yeah, we got
close.
like 2 years left.
Yes, yes.
And we really have to get cracking. I think a charter school, as I spoke with Dr. Oh my gosh, what is the gentleman's name? He sat on your board. He just retired. Pinellas County School System, Brinson.
Oh,
Dr.
Lewis Brinton.
Brinson,
Hmm.
Dr. Brinson and I had a conversation regarding this, and we did talk about the charter school um, avenue. So, what do you think about the charter school avenue? Is that something that you think is feasible through? I mean, what do you think?
Well, my reservations about charter schools is that they continue to take away from the existing public school. I just believe that we have to get our energy focused on holding our public school system accountable so we're having the greatest impact on the greatest number of children. A charter school is fine, but you're going to only be able to serve 2 or 300 children. And I don't know at last count that our charter school, we were having a lot of success in Pinellas County with charter schools. Nothing. It's not something that I've really done a lot of research in, but just trying to figure out. Well, does this whole charter school movement really work? Um, and again, it's just like everything else. It can work if it has the right level of leadership and accountability. But I tend to lean toward let's hold the Pinellas County school system accountable, because that's where the bulk of the children are. And I think that we've left a lot of the accountability measures on the table, and we've been silent. And I just think that that's where the work needs to be concentrated.
Well, hey, our tax dollars can definitely testify that they owe it to us
Yes,
for
abs-
the situation to be rectified.
absolutely,
So,
absolutely,
along
absolutely.
with along with our human and sweat equity as well.
Hmm.
Another question I have for you is about some of the aspirations. Well, I know you're at Orlando Correctional Institution, and you've also still been involved in some of the, or you're always involved in politics no matter where you are. It seems to find you some sort of way, but just wanted to kind of, I know now I spoke with you. I hate, you see, this is the thing. And whenever I interview someone that I have pretty much, I know in the community, I have some foreground as to what to ask you. But I want you to share it in a certain, um, share your testimony of why you went to Orlando Corrections, because you have your resume is stellar. Like if you run down your resume, it's stellar. So with all of the need, immediate need in Pinellas County, both administratively and uh, especially administration leadership roles, like why would you have to travel over counties to work every day? What's going on? What led you to go to Orlando Corrections?
Well, I learned rather quickly, having to raise my daughter and having to, of course, have a lifestyle, that it was best if my paycheck was in one county and my politics was in another. Because, as you know, Ernisa, when I go hard, and people don't play fair. And when you realize that people are not beyond trying to impact your livelihood, you recognize that it's best to make some strategic moves, and I think that has served me well. In that I've been able to commute 1,500 miles a week and still come back and run the NAACP. Never missed a meeting, never late to a meeting. Still able to manage Phyllis Wheatley Rise to Read campaign, and all that we've been able to accomplish in that. So I believe that, when God leads you in a certain direction, rather quickly if in fact that's what he's really calling you to do. And while I get it constantly, how in the world do you do this? um I remember when I started this Orange County journey, and I was talking to a friend, and I said, I just don't know. I got myself into. How am I going to get what, how am I going to do? How am I going to get there? How am I going to do this? And he said, just drive it every day. And I'm like, what? I said, oh, okay, and took that advice from someone that I cared quite deeply about and trusted, and have been driving it ever since. And I tell people, Ron DeSantis has not been my most favorite governor, but about mid-April, I was sitting on I-4 one Monday morning, and I said, Lord Jesus, why can't somebody do something about this s- traffic stall right at um, 27 and I-4? And that very same day, I'm sitting in my office, and I see something come over my phone that says DeSantis is addressing one of the most congested areas in the state of Florida. I picked up my phone, as God is my living witness. DeSantis was saying, now, I know this had to be something they were working on all along, but the fact that it was that day that he announced they were going to open up 2 lanes at I-4 and 27, and it was going to be within 2 weeks. And I thought, all I could do is just sit back, because that was my prayer that morning. Lord Jesus, why can't somebody do something? And here he was sending Ron DeSantis to open up those 2 lanes prematurely. And I tell you, it has cut an hour off of my commute. One, and I mean an hour each way. And all I can do is just, okay, Lord, you know what? I just surrender to you, because you got this thing all mapped out, and there's no sense in me worrying about the logistics and how I was going to do this and how I was going to do that. And it is all just this fare very well. And at the time that I went there, My friend um, Jerry Demings, who is the current mayor of Orange County. Jerry and I had been very close at Florida State. And his wife Val was actually, we actually lived in the same dorm. And then my childhood friend Cornita Riley was there at Orange County. And so it just seemed to be a move that made sense at the time. And obviously, um, it's obviously it has been, because November 6th of 2024 marked 18 years, and we're going on 19 years that I've been making that drive, and I believe have had a successful career there. Have had challenges, of course, but my strength, and I've always look at the bodies and the people that are in my chain of command, under my chain of command, and just proud of some of the people, and how I've been successful in developing and coaching them to success. And so it worked. It has worked, and while we're getting to a point of winding it down, it has certainly been something that I would not have traded.
I remember the day actually that you made the decision. You said you announced your decision. I put it like that too. That you were driving to Orange County. You were on 16th. You were on 16th Street. You were standing in my cousin's store, which is Black Art Plus,
Oh yes.
and you were looking at some piece that was. She had so much nice art in there, but you were looking at some piece, and you were saying, "Yeah." You were like, "I'm gonna be, starting work, in Orlando, And I'm like, okay, you know. But listen, we have to get the results. So you have to do the things that are uncommon, right?
Yes.
So the things that are common, that things, and I keep telling people, whatever the obvious choice is, you might think is the choice, but usually if you're going to do something great, if you're going to stay on course with what your purpose is, the obvious choice is usually not the actual choice. So the obvious choice is always going to be the convenient choice, right? The
Mm,
obvious choice is always going to be something that everyone can understand. But if it's something that everyone can understand, then it's usually not going to be a part of what you need to be doing regarding your purpose and what it is that you're calling. So you did that drive, and like I say, anyone else that most people in St. Petersburg, now this is like, that is not the norm for the mindset here. If it's in Clearwater, it's too far, and Clearwater is literally like, Clearwater is still literally Pinellas County.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you're traveling over counties to get to work every day. And in other cities, that is, normal behavior. Like, people will do that commute to make sure that their lifestyle is the one that they desire, because you don't get like a second and third time to live this life, right? So as you, you don't get to say, okay, I mean, I know Hezekiah turned his face to the Lord. He asked for 15 more years. You can do that. You could ask for 15 more years, but in your prime, in your time, like, you have to take advantage of your days and your hours, and the things that you want for your life. And you can't allow the outside forces and what they desire for your life
Mm,
um to uh to dictate, what you're going to do. And I appreciate and applaud what you've shared with us, because what it says is that the only way you can be boxed in is if you allow it. Like, you're gonna have to get out of your comfort zone to get what it is, that the results that you require. So you're in a position now where you're, what, semi-retired, because you're not like actually retired.
right,
Like, I
right.
really.
Yeah, the category that I'm in, what they call in the state of Florida, the drop program. And what that means is that I'm officially retired from the Florida retirement system, but I have not retired from Orange County government. So and now what all it takes is for me to decide to give my um management team at least 30 days, or HR to say I'm done, I'm gone, and I'm out. So no, the status is considered retired from the Florida retirement system while I still am employed by Orange County government.
So, local politics right now, what are your thoughts on some of the transactions that are taking place regarding our development? I asked number one, on on the current infrastructure, because I know we have an infrastructure issue. So I'll just put that out there first. What do you think about the development, um, the place, the concentration of development in certain areas of
Mhm.
town,
Well,
and
well,
then the CRA money? Okay, let's just. I know.
okay, all
You get
right,
what I'm saying?
yeah,
You
yeah.
get what street I'm driving down, and then yeah. So what do what are some of your views?
I'm gonna the South St. Petersburg CRA, I'm going to address that in one sentence. I think that we have done a terrible disservice to the use of those funds. Um, I was speaking with a young lady in the neighborhood that's recently come into St. Pete, and she was sharing that she was not able to get on the South St. Petersburg CRA. And I said, "Well, honey, join the club. I've applied under Kreisman administration and the Welch administration. I was very much involved in the planning of the I can't remember what Gypsy Gallardo was calling it, but I can't get an appointment on it." And she said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "No, I'm not kidding you." I said, "The intent is not to have anybody on there that's going to be really holding folks accountable and doing what needs to be done." And I think we've done a disservice. I think the other disservice that we did was that Tropicana Field was actually in the South St. Petersburg CRA, but it was moved into the downtown CRA so that the downtown would benefit from those tax credits. So there's a lot to be done. I mean, I could literally go on all day, but I won't on that. I was, as far as infrastructure, I think we all know that we learned through these devastating storms that we have some challenges with our infrastructure. I do some of the money that was announced this week for the city of St. Petersburg is money to help mitigate some of the storm and flooding over in Short Acres. And I can tell you, my heart just goes out for that community because this has just been an ongoing issue to the point where people actually just put a as is sign and say I'm gone. I think too for that to get like that, it's just for so many years. I just don't. There is no understanding, no explanation as to how people can make that kind of investment into a home. And now that we have the same issues of flooding that we've never had in South St. Petersburg to exacerbate some of the other issues that we've already had, yeah, we're at a challenging time with our infrastructure. And I'm hoping that I have not had a chance to review our stormwater um, master plan because I'm very interested in understanding the strategy. I'm not looking in it long, short term fixes, but what is the long term strategy to address these issues of streets that we now have flooding that have never flooded before, um, and that's just with a little rain. And so I think that this is definitely an issue that hopefully will not be treated as another political ping pong ball, but that we're very serious on addressing identifying all of the technical as well as the resource issues, and then developing plans on how we're going to um, fix these problems.
And just for our audience, the sake of our audience being international, because this is going to air on YouTube, this is going to air on a few different platforms that people may not be as they might, they don't understand the terminology that we're using when we say CRA. So can you break down for people what is CRA? And when I say local, what city are we in, things of that nature, just for to put so they can put in context what you've shared with us.
Okay.
So what is CRA?
Community redevelopment areas are designations that allow local municipalities to redevelop supposedly areas that have been deemed what's the word I'm looking for? Not demolished, blighted, blighted, blighted,
Redline.
blighted areas.
Hmm.
And what happens with those areas, the tax base from those redevelop, once an area has been designated a redevelopment area, and it takes, for example, in the city of St. Petersburg, it also takes the county to be involved in that process, then the tax funds from that can go to redeveloping projects within that area. And that's what I have not really gotten a good handle on, is to how the estimated $70 million that have been gleaned from the South St. Petersburg CRA, South St. Petersburg, which is, and it's named that for the designation of South St. Petersburg, which grows from um, as far south. The boundaries, I think, are 22nd Avenue South, which may not mean anything to individuals that are not physically familiar with St. Petersburg, but the area is carved out. And the whole purpose of the designation is to remove blight from those areas.
I'm just going to go back to the 1990s just for a moment, and we're talking about the city of St. Petersburg, Florida, just for contextual information for our audience. Want to travel back just a little bit to the time when Fisher, I believe, was in office. I believe Kurt Singer may have been the chief of police at that time during the riots. Who
Hmm.
was the chief of? Yeah, and so there was some there was some financial there was major financial federal money that was allocated to the city of St. Petersburg at that time, and was that for blighted areas also? I'm just wondering.
Yes, you're the primary funding source back then, if my memory serves me correctly, were funds that were came down from the National for Weed and Seed, and the name denoted they were weeding out drugs but seeding in economic development. And uh, I'm not so sure that that's what really happened. I remember headlines of a time St. Pete Times article that read $700 million later. What has been the result in St. Petersburg, in South St. Petersburg? So, while I think that we've had the redevelopment initiatives, and we've had the focus on redevelopment of South St. Petersburg, I don't think that it is it is manifested as if we had envisioned. Certainly not that of Tropicana Field, and we see a lot of lip service being given to promises, but I think that we somehow conversations tend to lead toward promises, meaning maybe putting up a statue or something that honor black folks and those that gave up their properties in the historic gas plant. And I'm like, no, we ain't interested in no more statues. No, we're looking at what is going to be the economic benefit for families that were uprooted into for example, in the historic gas plant area. So
Yeah, just little tiny twist to the story can surely bring the context into a different perspective. And when you talk about families giving up their properties, it wasn't something that they did willfully. So it's
Mhm.
very, it's very interesting if when you want to honor these people as if they don't want, recompense. They don't want generational restoration of a breach that
Mhm.
had been established due to their
Somebody.
footing, their land being taken. So thank you for bringing that to the light for our audience regarding the 700 million. And I believe that weed and seed money was in the came from a national level. Was it the Clinton administration?
Mhm. I'm gonna have to put you on hold 1 second.
Okay.